5 years ago, I worked at a host club in Tokyo, and by far the wildest part of my experience was living in the dorms of the host club. I was taken to the dorms after my first day of work. I was brought to a small, one-room apartment with 2 bunk beds. 7 hosts crowded into this tiny room. The room was run down, cramped like army barracks, and continually thick with cigarette smoke. Most of the guys sleeping there were rich. They could have moved out at any time. I lived in this room for 3 weeks. I heard frank conversations about customers there that left a lasting impression on me. These conversations gave me the singular insight I was seeking. These were the unique experiences I had joined this bizarre and dark profession for. After my first day of work at the new host club, I walked with some of the hosts to the dorms for the first time. I brought my bag with me, containing my few possessions in Japan. I was surprised at how packed the apartment room was. The manager had not mentioned any of this during any part of the interview process or afterward. Even as a short experiment, these living conditions would be rough for an introvert in a foreign country. Each of the 2 bunk beds were filled, and I was the 3rd person to sleep on the floor in this room, which was pretty close to the physical limit of the floor. Surprisingly, many of the hosts staying in the dorms had been hosts for a year or more, and most of the hosts in the dorms were earning a lot of money. These apartments would be around $1,000 per month to rent on the market, and some of the hosts were making more than 10 times that amount. The dorm was free for new hosts, and they charged higher earning hosts a small amount. There were multiple hosts earning multiple tens of thousands of dollars a month, living in these cramped and also rundown apartment rooms. I saw later that the general manager was pressuring some of the hosts to move out because the dorms were intended to help newer hosts get started earning money and then move out once they had started to do that. Smoking was omnipresent in the dorms. There was a hooded vent in the corner of the room attached to a tiny kitchenette that sat against the wall. This vent was constantly running as someone smoked in the corner, often quickly joined by 1 or 2 others. Most of the hosts smoked, and most of them smoked constantly. The only break was during the club's hours, though there was a small amount of smoking even then. And then when the customers left, the hosts would quickly start smoking again inside the club. The hosts had an enormous amount of disposable income. Their fixed monthly expenses were almost nothing compared to their incomes. The hosts spent easily the most money on clothes, and then other things like accessories, makeup, and cologne. Hosts were too busy to spend much money on other things or activities. My dorm room was completely overfilled with clothing. Every clothing rack and closet was completely packed to its physical limit, and there were even lots of shirts hanging from any place physically possible on the bunk beds. Clothes were being constantly given away and traded between the hosts. It was just an unreal environment to me, coming from normal life, with the awareness of how much these clothes cost, and they were being given away so casually, like candy. All of the clothes were from famous luxury brands with prominent logos that made the brand obvious. That was the flashy style of the host clubs. Coach, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada were common. Many of these shirts were worth more than my entire wardrobe. Hosts bought and put on many accessories, always from flashy luxury brands. Hosts would keep their jewelry in some container overfilled with accessories thrown in so casually, making them almost look like toys. Each box could be worth a few years' salary for a salaryman. Most hosts used at least some makeup, sometimes in obvious ways, making their skin very white, emphasizing their eyes, things like that. Others would use just enough makeup to cover blemishes and make their skin look just a little smoother. I think that as a result of hosts basically drinking nonstop for 5 nights a week, if not 7, their real skin was often in bad shape, and makeup was used to cover this up. The irregular lifestyle with reverse day and night probably contributed to the bad health and skin as well. Most of the meals were bought at convenience stores too. After waking up, hosts would usually buy some sandwiches or onigiri or fried chicken at a convenience store and then eat it at the dorm. After work at 1 or 2 a.m. or so, it was also most common to buy some food at the convenience store and eat it at the dorm. Some of the higher earning hosts also spent money on plastic surgery, including at least 1 host in the dorms. Plastic surgery was not unusual and was becoming more common among hosts as a whole. Laser hair removal was more common. Many hosts had their facial hair permanently removed, and many had full body hair removal. Facial hair was almost unseen among hosts. They were clean-shaven, with even remaining stubble covered over with makeup. The hosts were constantly talking with each other. It was a lot of fun to be a part of. Even at the time, I knew I would really miss these conversations and this lifestyle. It was a close-knit, intimate camaraderie like I had never experienced before and might not ever experience again. I thought that being in the army might be a little bit like this. Hosts would share everything about their current lives and customers with each other. It was normal to look through each other's messages, which took time to get used to. Hosts would be talking about some customer and then show their conversation with them, or someone would casually ask to see the text. The topic of sleeping with customers came up sometimes. It was normal for hosts to sleep with customers. This would often happen as a kind of reward after the customer bought a bottle at the host club. It's called an after when the host spends time with customers after the club closing. Newer and lower ranking hosts would sleep with customers more than other hosts because they kind of had to. Hosts with higher sales could get customers to spend a lot of money without sleeping with them. The higher status itself encouraged customers to spend more money. The host would become the type of person that it felt natural to spend a lot of money on. The higher ranking hosts would also use their more developed host skills to get customers to spend money without sleeping with them. These hosts would learn to create deep relationships with customers without sleeping with them and without even spending much time with them. A successful host could be juggling more than 100 actual and potential customers at a time. They were on their phones messaging girls nearly every waking hour. Any other activity had to be very efficient and kept to a minimum. They made themselves into celebrity-like personas in the customers' lives. The hosts I talked to didn't generally enjoy sleeping with customers. Most of them told me they had gotten ED since becoming hosts. They said they could usually hide it and that sometimes it caused complaints. Some hosts told me they liked sleeping with customers that they liked and that this rarely happened since they didn't choose their customers, they were simply customers. I learned that a host had suddenly disappeared from the dorm that I went into only a short time before I joined. I inherited some of his things that he left behind in the dorm. I learned later that he had gotten into a relationship with a customer and suddenly left to be with her. Relationships with customers are forbidden by the club, so it made sense that he would suddenly disappear. The club would charge massive fines for things like accepting money or gifts outside of the club. The club wouldn't be able to take their percentage if these were given outside the club, and it was said that spending everything through the club helped avoid troubles, such as when girls asked for money or things back. These would be much trickier situations if the money was given personally, rather than simply and lawfully spent at a store. The club would stop taking orders around midnight, and the top performing host of the night would sing a song. Then the club would close and the hosts would have a meeting that would let out after 1 a.m. After this, people would have dinner and some would continue drinking to enjoy their free hours after work. My training at the host club was conducted by the number 2 ranking host in the club, both in terms of sales and also their official kind of managerial position, which are given out based on long-term sales performance as well as leadership ability. Let's call him Jin here. Jin was quite extroverted and on the larger side. He was truly caring towards the newer hosts at the club, especially towards me, and dedicated a lot of energy and time to encouraging and helping other hosts. In moments, he displayed an intense emotional care for me that I was truly touched by, and he displayed happiness and an almost personal pride when he noticed any improvements in my conduct at the club. Like some other hosts, Jin would sometimes come to hang out at the dorms after work. He was a college graduate, which was unusual for hosts. Most hosts were high school graduates and some were junior high graduates, although one host at this club was a Waseda graduate and a former consultant. Jin had played basketball throughout college and worked a regular salaryman job after graduating. I think during his first year of working, he started to work at a host club part-time and loved it. Immediately after receiving his first bonus in December, he quit his job to become a full-time host. He said quite dramatically, with beaming confidence, "I was born to be a host." He talked openly about how good he felt he was at being a host. I think he was making up to $500,000 a year. All the sales numbers are known to all the hosts. His bragging didn't come across as annoying. His boasts were backed up by his number 2 ranking, and he was good-natured and was on an emotional high after that day's work, probably having made a lot of money that night. He boasted about how he was extremely good at guessing the amount of money in someone's savings and bank accounts to a very high precision. He would always find out about a customer's job, their shopping habits, their hobbies, personality, etc. And from these details, he could guess the amount of money in their bank accounts at an early stage. He gave examples, like if a customer was 26 years old and had been a nurse since 22, he would know their total earnings from that. And if she had few friends and didn't go on expensive vacations and had an apartment that must cost around a certain amount, He could guess very accurately how much money they had in their savings account. Often the shy and modest girls would have saved up almost all their money left over after living expenses, as they didn't go out drinking and shopping and traveling with friends. After Jin had an idea of how much they had in savings, he would tailor his requests to the customer to exactly drain their account. If he guessed that the girl had around $50,000 in savings, he might spend 6 months building up to asking for the girl to open a $50,000 bottle of champagne. Salaries in Japan are very modest, and even more so for women working in offices, so once these savings were drained, the girls would not be able to afford to come to the club at all. In other cases, the host would then introduce them to lucrative night work where they would start to earn a lot more money than in their day job, and this money would go straight into the club. While Jin was talking about this, other hosts chimed in with interest. They would ask about particular customers that they knew, and he'd tell them how much money they have, or they'd speculate about newer customers that they weren't sure of yet, and different hosts would share their own guesses, like a game. Serious, shy, and modest girls were like jackpots, and excited them. Hardworking, thrifty, without leisure spending, without boyfriends or close friends to consult, the club was the only source of excitement in these girls' lives, making them vulnerable. Every night as I settled into sleeping on the floor, I would listen to the album Ye by Ye.